Computer-generated chess problem 2739 by Chesthetica. White has a queen, rook and bishop against black's rook, bishop and pair of pawns. But white's queen, even though it's pinning the rook on g2, is attacked by the pawn on e4. And that pawn is defended by the bishop. The bishop is twice attacked by the king and the bishop on a2. And the rook on a6 doesn't seem to be doing anything particularly interesting. So most people in this situation would probably try something like queen to f4. And then if bishop captures bishop, queen captures pawn, pinning the rook again. And then black can try maybe bishop to b1. This only buys a bit of time. Rook to a1, and the mate cannot be prevented in the next move. Even if king to g1, queen to e1 is mate. So at this point, probably black will try to buy a bit more time with king to g1. Bishop captures bishop, rook to g6 check, skewering the king. King to e5. If rook captures rook, queen to g3 check, king to h1, loses to bishop captures pawn, and king to f1, loses to bishop to c4. Checkmate with a simultaneous fork on the king and rook. So at this point, black just tries to buy some time. Rook to e6 check, maybe bishop captures rook, h1. Now here if h1 promotes to queen, black loses more quickly because of queen to g3 check. If queen to g2, rook to a1 mates. If king to f1, bishop to c4 mates as before, except that this time the rook on a6 is white. So black could actually last a bit longer by under promoting to knight. And then here white can proceed maybe with rook to a2, finally bringing that rook into play, e3, queen to h2 check, king to f1, and then either queen captures knight or rook to a1 mates. So all of this is possible, but is it the best move in the position? The answer is no, and here is why. Okay, so as you can see, there are many mates possible, but you can mate in half the time, a mate in just 3 moves, if you forget about saving the queen. That means you don't focus on material. You'll be surprised how often not focusing on material helps in chess. So bishop captures bishop. So now, before we take a look at the obvious response, if e3, then obviously queen captures rook with mate. If king to g1, rook a1 with mate. So white basically invites black to capture the queen. And here, white doesn't play bishop captures pawn, because this would be a draw. As you can see from the analysis, after king to g1, the position is drawn. For example, bishop captures rook, king captures bishop, and this pawn promotion cannot be stopped. White has to exchange, leaving only the kings, which is a dead draw. So white needs to be careful, not too hasty. Here, rook to a1 works instead of bishop captures pawn, because now that the pawn is on f3, the rook can defend and pins itself on the rank against its king. Earlier, it was pinned on the diagonal by the bishop against the king. Now it's pinned on the rank, the first rank, against the king. Bishop captures f3, mates. The rook cannot intervene. A mate in 3 moves. Looking back at the original position, do you think you would have seen the key move, bishop captures bishop, or do you think you would have tried to save the queen? Thanks for watching.
Chesthetica's Book of Chess Constructs, Volumes 1 through 5. Available on Amazon.